Good morning, Year 6. This is your first lesson on writing for this week, and we're going to be starting a new unit of work. This unit is not actually linked to our topic, and this half term will be focusing on a different way of approaching our writing. So our objective today is to identify the features of a balanced argument. Now, we've done this before. You should think back really carefully to when we did is it important for people to be in charge? Is it important to have leaders? And we did a balanced argument there, which was some people thought yes and some people thought no, and we argued both points of view. That's what we will be doing this week, but we'll be focusing on a new topic, which I will introduce to you as we go through this work. I just want you to take a moment now. So we're going to be looking at a balanced argument for this block of writing. And I want you to think, why are balanced arguments a useful genre of writing? Why are they useful? So take a moment and note down any ideas that you have. Address some of the answers that you have for this question. So why are balanced arguments a really useful genre of writing? Well, number one, they give two opposing views, so you get to hear different opinions. They also allow lots of points of view to be heard and to be seen. This means that they allow people to hear all the facts. Okay, they're not just on one side, you can hear everybody's point of view. Four is they're not biased, and that's really important because actually by not being biased, it makes your argument seem stronger, so people are more likely to agree with you ultimately because they can see that you have considered all the opinions involved. And five, it actually lets people make up their own mind, which is really important because you've given them all the facts from both sides, and then it allows them to make a carefully considered final viewpoint. So in today's lesson, we're going to be doing something called finding the shape, okay? And that doesn't mean triangles, squares, rectangles. It actually means looking at a waggle, what a good one looks like. And in that, we're finding what a good one looks like so we can recreate the exact shape and the same features as the waggle. So it's the shape of the writing, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it's constructed. And that's what we need to do in this lesson. We're going to find the shape by looking at a waggle. So we're going to identify key elements and features of the writing that we know we need to emulate, which means to do again and to copy in our own writing this week. So during this lesson, we will be finding the shape of a balanced argument. So we're going to look at this example together, and you can see there on the image, although it's a little bit blurry, that we're finding the shape of a balanced argument. So make sure I've attached this to Edmodo, that you have it in front of you as I read it, and I will go through and read to you the balanced argument, and we'll have a look at the paragraphs together. Okay, so I'm going to start by reading paragraph 1 and 2 and maybe discussing a few of the points as we go through this about the shape of it. So we're going to start with, are playtimes essential to children's well-being? Right, so I'm looking at this really carefully and I'm thinking, that seems like a key question. So that's like a heading. So I know that my shape of my writing will start with a heading. So let's begin. Since the academisation of schools, pupils' entitlement to playtime is an issue that has polarised opinion. Right, so that first sentence there is outlining my argument. So it's an introduction. So my text starts with an introduction. Many stakeholders believe it should be a ring-fenced time and protected at all cost, whilst others believe more time for lessons is required. So I'm outlining two different opinions there. I've got in my introduction, I'm still in the introduction, I'm giving both sides of the opinion. I'll carry on reading. The subject has ignited furious viewpoints, divided communities and caused conflict among professionals, social workers, child development officers and paediatricians included. Paediatricians are childhood doctors. Despite being a contentious issue, it is vital that a 360-degree viewpoint is taken so we can fully understand all sides of this important debate. I know from that sentence that I'm still in an introduction because it's outlining both sides of it. The vast majority of head teachers whose job it is to foster rounded pupils are desperately worried that youngsters are not getting enough physical activity or fresh air. Mr. Good, a head teacher of Southfield Junior School, Paddington, stressed, children need fresh air and to run around and let off steam. We can't expect them to concentrate on their work without regular breaks. Often, children who are denied outdoor playtime struggle to focus, sit still, and follow instructions. Right, all of that is the introduction. And in there, I can see that this writer has quite a strong opinion about the break times being essential because they've opened it up with a really clear viewpoint that children need fresh air. And they've got a quote in there from a head teacher. So in that introduction, this person is kind of outlining to me that there are two different viewpoints, but actually that there is one that they feel more strongly aligns with them. So far, as part of my shape, I've got a heading and I've got an introduction. I'm going to go into paragraph 2. In stark contrast, some head teachers argue that playtime is disrupting children's learning and causing social and friendship problems that spill over into the classroom. Researchers found that 70 to 90% of primary children had felt ostracised and or bullied at break times. Allowing people to stay indoors would make them feel safer, happier and more able to engage in their learning. Now again, it's moved on to another point of view and I have got that there. So it's very clear that there are two very different opinions here. So we're thinking about that shape and what that paragraph does. The first one is clearly an introduction and I've got my heading, and now I've got another viewpoint coming through there in paragraph 2. As we move on to paragraph 4, we have got a new idea coming in. So, to play or not to play is an issue that has divided opinion in local communities, especially among parents. Kerry Blossom, a long-standing member of an inner-city PTA, says, "As a loving and conscientious parent, I am very alarmed by the fact that playtimes are being taken away from children. A recent Department for Education report states that some children are getting as little as 10 minutes of outdoor activity per day, which doesn't even equate to 5% of the recommended daily amount. When are we going to act on this grave risk to our children's health?" On the other hand, some parents argue that their children should be prepared for the real world of work as early as possible. Ivor Genius, who hopes his sons will follow him into the world of banking, said, "Can you imagine if the world of business stopped to play tag twice a day? It's nonsense. Playtimes make children overexcited and disrupt their concentration." So here you can see that we've got two new opinions. Okay, so we walked away from professionals involved and we're now looking at community view, the parents. Okay, and here we're looking at how the parents feel about it. And within this paragraph, we've got an agree statement, an agree parent, Cherry Blossom, and a disagree parent, Ivor Genius. Okay, so we're keeping those two balances within this one point. So we're looking at how the local community feels, and we've got a point about the local community that agree and the local community that disagree. Moving on to paragraph 5. It has been argued by some teachers that children take a long time to settle back down to learning after playtimes, meaning slower progress in core subjects. In addition, playtimes can increase staff workload through minor accidents, injuries requiring first aid, poor pupil behaviour, arguments and violence between pupils that requires teacher intervention, and damage to school property. Often pupils' own voices are discounted on the issue, so it is essential that we listen to their personal opinions. A recent survey of 30 Year 5 pupils showed the overwhelming majority, 90%, to be in favour of playtimes. Children believed it was beneficial to their well-being to be able to run around and exercise, have fun with friends, breathe some fresh air, and to enjoy downtime from writing and concentrating. So in there, we've moved away from the community view. We had some teachers there are professional within it, but we've got the pupil view now. So in there, we've got pupil view and we've got evidence that supports that they agree with break time. So we've backed it up with a statistic, the 90% part, and we've got facts in there as well. So we've got here in paragraph 4 and 5, we're looking at the community view, okay, parents, and we're looking at the pupil view because those are the people directly impacted by this issue. At paragraph 6 and 7. So as we move through this, we're going to start with paragraph 6. In stark contrast, several pupils said playtimes were stressful and upsetting, having been isolated, bullied and made to feel fearful for their safety. Business magnate Steve Jobs, co-founder of technology giant Apple, said, "Playing hide and seek didn't get me where I am today. I'll always be grateful to the primary school teachers who let me stay indoors and mess around on the computers. It's where I developed my ideas and work ethic." Indeed, it could be argued that Britons have always put work before play. It's the fighting spirit that saw us through the Great Depression of the 1930s, 2 world wars and a number of peacetime recessions. So this paragraph again is looking at the pupil view, but this is no longer an agree statement, this is a disagree statement. And it's talking about pupils who find playtime stressful and upsetting, so they disagree with playtimes for children. So now we're going to move on to paragraph 7, and this is our last paragraph. So think really carefully because we've done balanced arguments before. We're going to be ending with a conclusion. So the symbol and the shape of this will be the conclusion. The question that remains in this time of inactive infants is, should we be pummeling playtimes or encouraging exercise? This debate is a cooking pot of opinion that is likely to continue devouring the attention of those with an interest in children's activity levels. In conclusion, there are many points for and against playtimes. At the very heart of this argument is the health of future generations. As we advance into an increasingly digital age, the debate around children's rights to some simple daily fresh air is likely to continue to play out. So here in the conclusion, we've got the final section, which is really summing up the key elements of this argument. Within the conclusion, they've argued for and against again, but they've kind of got more of a view that is actually that playtimes are essential. Okay, so think very carefully. The conclusion is the final paragraph, so it should draw together all of those really important ideas. And we're going to now look at some symbols as to how that can help us to plot out the shape of a balanced argument. Let's look at this really carefully, because this will now help us when we're doing looking at our non-narrative map. So we've got these symbols, okay? We've got a question, okay? We know that ours started with a key question, which actually was the heading as well. We've got an introduction, we've got the senior view, so the overarching view about this, which is your view when you're writing. The community view, the people who have a secondary effect on them. The pupil view, they're the people who have the direct view on this. You've got your C for the conclusion, which we know always goes at the end of a piece of balanced argument writing. We've got our agree symbols and our disagree symbols, because we will have some points that agree and some that disagree. So what you're going to do now is you're going to be thinking about this and have a look at the text again, and you're going to add on to the text, the Waggle, where these symbols should go. Independently, I'd like you to reread the Waggle and use the symbols from the previous slide. You've got the example here to help you, and you're going to plot out where the agreed points are, where the disagreed points are, whether they're in favour of the community or whether they're in view of the pupils, where your introduction is, where your key question and heading is, and where your conclusion is. And by doing this, it will help you to understand and remember the shape of your balanced argument, what needs to go where and how does it need to be written. Continue to read through your Waggle now and complete this with the symbols for the last few paragraphs, adding in the pupil view and whether they agree or disagree in the in-stark contrast paragraph, and adding in where your conclusion is. It's really important to do this just to make sure that in your head you have got a really good understanding of the shape and the symbols that you will need to remember when writing your non-narrative piece of writing. You're now going to have a look at the non-fiction map. It's attached to this Edmodo post for a balanced argument. Now, you've seen these before when we've done fictional writing, but as you can see, you've got your key question and all of these symbols plotted out on here, because these are the argument points. This is the structure and the shape of your writing. So what you're going to do is you're going to use this, okay, and you're going to add on key information of how the reader should be feeling at each of these points. So it says character highs, but you're the reader, okay? So the key question, how do you feel? Is it a positive feeling or is it a negative feeling? Then for point 1, point 2, then you've got your point 3 over here, which is the community view, agree, community view, disagree, pupil view, agree, pupil view, disagree, and then the C finally for conclusion. Where are you plotting yourself as your feelings as the reader as you go through this? So just plot on whether at each point you're feeling more positive towards this argument or negative, and plot it onto the non-fiction map. So how would we be able to write a balanced argument? And what we need to be thinking is we're going to do this week. So we're going to use the shape of this text and this example to write our own about a different topic, but in this exact same style. So starting with a key question, ending up with a conclusion, having a community view and a pupil view, all within it with agree and disagree points. So we need to be looking at this really carefully. So we do know that 2 points of view are necessary, and we will also need to do some research. So that's what we will be doing on day 3 of this week, okay? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to write our own balanced argument this week using this exact same style. So bear in mind those key points and those symbols are going to be necessary for this week. So make sure you keep the narrative map for this week. So as the week progresses, we're going to be working on our own key question, and that is, are screens and the amount of time spent on them impacting children? So what research needs to be undertaken to construct our own balanced argument on children's screen use? We're going to need some facts, we're going to need some statistics, we're going to need some viewpoints from children, we're going to need some viewpoints from adults, perhaps teachers in the profession, parents. So your job this week will be to gather all of these different viewpoints through research, debate and interviews. So as the week goes on, the next few days, that's what we will be doing. So just to finalise this lesson, all we know that this week is we're going to gather opposing views and facts to go with it. So we're going to have to conduct research, and we'll further explore the shape of the balanced argument tomorrow in order to get ready to conduct some research to support our balanced argument. So for the remainder of this week, we will be conducting some further exploration into the shape of the text, and we will carry out some further research into why people have different viewpoints on children's use of screen time. We will then do a debate, and we will then do an interview with some members of staff and some parents regarding the viewpoints around children and their use of screen time. So for the end of this lesson, please make sure you've uploaded your annotated, where you've drawn on the symbols, Waggle, and I would also like you to upload your non-narrative map so that we can see that you've got a good idea of what the reader is feeling at each point in these arguments. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the shape of a balanced argument.